Continuing our study in the book of Revelation, we are in chapter 13 at verse 11. Chapter 13, 1 through 10 was about an insertion that described the coming of the beast, the first beast, out of the sea. And now in 13:11 through 18, we see the second beast. He comes up out of the land. These three prominent figures, the devil, the first beast, and the second beast, form what some people refer to as a false trinity. Now we have to be careful here because we know that the word Trinity does not appear in the Bible, and yet it's a valid biblical concept. And also the expression false trinity does not appear in the Bible, and yet it is also seems to be a valid comparison. This false trinity is an imitation of the true Trinity. Just as Christ receives power from the Father in Matthew 11:27, Antichrist receives power from Satan in Revelation 13:4. The Holy Spirit glorifies Christ, note John 16:14, and the second beast, as we will see in this insertion, glorifies the first beast. Christ works so that mankind will glorify God, as in Revelation 1:6, and the Antichrist serves so that mankind will worship and glorify the devil, as in Revelation 13:4. In 16:13, these three evil characters are all mentioned in parallel together, just as in Revelation 1, 4, and 5, and Matthew 28:19, the three persons of the Trinity are mentioned in parallel together. So, yes, we know that the word Trinity and the expression false Trinity are not used in the Bible, but we know that the Bible does describe a true Trinity, and the Bible also describes an imitation Trinity here. And that Trinity, the third person in that Trinity, is the false prophet, who is described in this insertion, Revelation 13:11 through 18. So, chapter 13, verse 11. And I saw another beast coming up from the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he was speaking like a dragon. He has two horns. The first beast had 10 horns. This really isn't explained for us. He appears to be like a lamb, but he speaks like a dragon. He speaks like the devil, and this will emphasize the verbal, spoken work of this evil character, the second beast. In fact, later he's called the false prophet. Chapter 13, verse 12. And he carries out all the authority of the first beast before him, and he made the earth and those dwelling in it worship the first beast, whose lethal wound had been healed. Just as the work of the Holy Spirit is not so that the Holy Spirit is glorified, but so that Jesus Christ is glorified, so this second beast serves so that the first beast is worshipped. And again, the text emphasizes, who is this first beast? He's the one whose lethal wounds had been healed. That's a significant part of the life of this first beast. Chapter 13, verses 13 and 14. And he performs great signs, even fire, so that it comes down from heaven before the people. And by the signs which were given to him to perform before the beast, he deceives those, they are mine, who dwell upon the earth, telling those who dwell upon the earth to make an image of the beast, who had the wound from the sword, but lived. This second beast can do miracles. He will be able to imitate Elijah, who called down fire from heaven in 1 Kings 18:38. Like a false Elijah, he brings false worshipers to worship the false Christ. This insertion in the midst of the verse, they are mine, there's actually a textual problem about this, but most of the manuscripts include this sudden insertion, "They are mine." It seems to be God jumping in and claiming ownership even of the people who dwell upon the earth and who reject him. Again, this is a textual problem, and the oldest texts do not include it, but the majority of the texts include it. They are mine. This image that's set up reminds us of the image of Nebuchadnezzar that was set up, described in Daniel chapter 3, that had to be worshipped. But also in John's time, Roman officials were setting up statues, images of the Roman emperor, and requiring people to worship that statue. So these early readers knew all about statues that had to be worshipped, or you'd get into big trouble with the government. We learn more about that statue in 1315. "And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast could even speak, and could cause all those who did not worship the image of the beast to be killed." Mounce tells us that at that time there were rumors of statues that could speak, be brought to life and could speak. And all this reminds us of Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 3, and 2 Thessalonians 2, 9. Not everything that's supernatural is from God. We need to be careful about that. 6 times in the book of Revelation, we read about the worship of the image of the beast. That's in 13:15 here, and 14:9, and 11, and 16:2, and 19:20, and 24. 6 times. That is interesting, because 6 is one short of 7, and it may speak of imperfection rather than perfection. More about the work of this beast, this second beast, in 13:16. "And he makes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the slave and the free, so that they give to them marks upon their right hand or upon their forehead." Marks upon their right hand or their forehead. This mark upon the right hand or the forehead is opposite the seal of God that we read about in Revelation 7:3. It's opposite. Oh, there's 2 marks in the book of Revelation. Just as we see that there is 2 kinds of victory in the book of Revelation, so there are 2 marks. The seal of God upon the 144,000 back in Revelation 7:3, and here in 13:16, an opposite kind of mark upon the right hand or upon the forehead. Chapter 13, verse 17. "Even so that no one is able to buy or sell unless he has the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name." So there will be various kinds of persecution against the faithful believers in Jesus Christ. One of the forms of persecution is that if you don't have this mark, you won't be able to buy or sell. This economic persecution will be very difficult for believers. It will require faith in God every day just to have something to eat every day. They will have to have steadfastness and faithfulness. But it's also happening even today. There is economic persecution against believers. They aren't allowed to go into the marketplace because believers of the majority religion might consider them to be defiled. So this is a more developed form of economic persecution, but even today economic persecution happens. And this insertion about the second beast, and this chapter closes with chapter 13, verse 18. "Here there's wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number, and his number is 666. So the false prophet will require everyone to get the mark of the beast, People will receive it and worship the beast, and receiving this mark, they will be able to buy or sell. What is this mark? Well, we need wisdom. We might not have wisdom to know this, but when the time comes and these events unfold in the future, believers can have the wisdom that they will need to know about this mark. Well, it's man's number, and his number is 666. Of course, this has brought up all kinds of speculative, enthusiastic interpretations and proclamations in today's world. I remember when I was newly a believer, barcodes started showing up on products, and we were told, oh, that's the mark, that's the 666. Don't buy this shampoo that has the, well, now everything, including Bibles, have barcodes on them, and that didn't turn out to be the mark of the beast. And today we hear about chips and people getting chips inserted under their skins, and oh, that's the mark of the beast. And even we hear about COVID vaccinations, in which you get the vaccine and you get a chip inserted into your shoulder. Oh boy. Well, if the Antichrist comes this year, he will use the top quality technology of the day for his persecution of those that don't want to worship him. But if the Antichrist's coming and the whole tribulation period doesn't happen right away, but say happens in 10 or 20 years from now, people will laugh at the idea of such a primitive technology as chips being injected. They'll laugh about that because there'll be some new technology that the Antichrist will use. So let's be clear about chips and injections and all that sort of thing. The real issue is, who are you worshiping? Are you refusing to worship the beast, the false prophet, the devil? Then you won't get the mark of 666. The mark of 666 is for worshipers of the devil, the first beast, and the second beast. No one unintentionally gets that mark. It's about who we worship, and no one can sneak up on you and mark you with the 666. That's just not how it happens. This is about a visible sign of people's worship. Now, so how can a name be a number? What does this mean? Well, in John's era, Jews and Greeks and Romans played a similar game with their alphabets, and we can play that same game with our English alphabet. In this game, our English version of it, the letter A is given the value of 1. The letter B is given the value of 2. The letter C is given the value of 3, etc. It gets a little more complicated than that after a while, but let's just keep it simple here. And so if you have a name, let's say we have a name like Bob, B-A-B, keeping it really simple. Okay, B-A-B, Bob. Then let's make up a name, Bob. Okay, B has a value of 2, A has a value of 1, and again, B has a value of 2. So the name Bob gets the number 2 plus 1 plus 2, 5. What about the name Bach, B-A-C? Well, B is 2, A is again 1, C is 3. So the name Bach gets a value of 6. It's very simple, right? It's simple when you use the early letters in the alphabet, but it's a simple concept. Names are easily translated into numbers in this game that they used to play. And this was a fairly popular thing. Remember the city of Pompeii that was destroyed by a terrible eruption of Mount Vesuvius? Well, some decades ago, they discovered this buried city of Pompeii, and they started excavating it, and they have lots of discoveries from them, from the ancient suddenly buried in volcanic ash city of Pompeii. And on a wall in the city of Pompeii, there is the writing, I love her whose name is 545. Now, for that young man who was in love with that girl, it was easy for him to take her name and switch it over into numbers. But, now hear this, but very, very, very difficult, impossible, for all the young women that would walk by to say, who is it? Now they could take their own names. Someone's name is Mary. M is something A plus R plus Y. Oh, it's not 545. It's not me. Okay, yes. But you can't look at 545 and figure out the girl's name. Why not? Because there's too many permutations. There's too many possibilities. So let's just take dad, D-A-D. What's dad come to? Dad is 4 plus 1 plus 4, right? D is 4, A is 1, 4 plus 1 plus 4. Dad goes to 9. Dad equals 9. What about G'day? G'day, G-E-D-E. Well, G is 7, E is 5, twice, so 7 plus 5 is 12, 12 plus 12 is 24. G'day is 24. Oh, okay. That's not too hard if you write out 1 equals, A equals 1, B equals 2, and you write that down, then you can do this. But now, here's the hard thing. Here's the impossible thing. What is 19? What is 27? Here, let's play more of this game here. Let's say ba, B-A. 2 plus 1. Ba is 3. What's ba-ba? 6. What's ba-ba-ba? 9. What's ba-ba-ba-ba? 12. Good. But what is 12? Oh, 12 could be ba-ba-ba-ba. How many ba? Ba-ba-ba-ba. But 12 could also be ab. Or there's lots of possibilities for what even a low number, a small number like 12 could be. There's lots of possibilities for 12. 12 could be ka. I can't do it that fast in my mind, but there's lots of possibilities for even a simple number like 20 or 10. So when you get to 666, whoa, there's a lot of different possibilities of what 666. A lot of possibilities. Irenaeus, who probably was a student of Polycarp, who probably was a student of John, came up with 3 possibilities. He didn't include Nero, by the way. And a lot of scholars like the idea that, 666 here is about Nero, and they want to put Nero into this text. They say that the book of Revelation was written around the time of Nero, and they want this all to be about Nero, rather than being about a future person during a future 7-year tribulation. That's their interpretation, which I don't accept. But they want 666 to be Nero. Well, it can come out to Nero, but there's a little problem here. Oh, of course, what alphabet are we using? Yeah, we have to decide. You could use the Greek or the Roman or the Hebrew alphabet in this process during John's time. Well, if you want 666 to come out to Nero Caesar, here's what you do. You have to start with Nero, and then you add the title Caesar to it. And then those Latin words, Caesar is a Latin word, has to be translated into Greek. And then the Greek letters must be transliterated into the one and only option of the Hebrew spelling that yields 666. And then, of course, the Hebrew letters are then coded into numbers, and those numbers are added up. Wow, that's a very complicated process in order to get Caesar Nero out of 666. You got to go in 3 different languages to make that work. But scholars do that because they want this, some scholars want this to be Nero. And if you skip one of those steps, and you just go from Latin directly into Hebrew letters, it comes out to 616. Now, that actually is a very interesting fact because, believe it or not, there was a 5th century manuscript of the book of Revelation called Codex Ephraimi that doesn't have 666, it has 616 in it. Wow. Oh, it's only one manuscript. Even in the 5th century, people were already playing with the 666 and trying to make it Nero. And one of them said, oh, let's just make it 616, and then we can drop this other step in switching from one language to another. It's better. Let's just change the manuscript from 666 to 616. Wow. So even in the 5th century, people were already playing with this number and trying to figure out what it meant. It wasn't Nero. It's not 616. It's 666. And to get from Nero's name to 666 is a way too complicated process. Switching, but people do try to do that. The point is here, God knows the Antichrist's name. When God gave John the book of Revelation and included the number 666, God even then knew the name of this Antichrist figure who was at least 2,000 years away and maybe longer. We don't know. 2,000, maybe 3,000 years. We don't know. God knew. And so, when believers are suffering persecution from the Antichrist in that future day, the real Antichrist, they will know his name, and they will read the book of Revelation, and they will say, is he the 666? And they will take his name and very easily go from name to number. Remember, easy to go from name to number. Basically impossible to go from number to name, but easy to go from name to number. They will know in that future day, they will know his name, they will go from name to number, and they will say, it's 666. They will see that it's 666. And their faith will be encouraged as they realize the God who gave the book of Revelation to the Apostle John, how many thousand years ago, knew the name of this man, this evil man who is oppressing us today. I'm going to stand firm with that God and not worship this false Christ. So it'll be a help for them. The 666 is not a help for us. It's not something to get enthusiastic and speculative about. We are not involved in that part of the story. What we are involved in is we have a choice today to continue in steadfastness, in faithfulness, to worship Jesus Christ. And in our pain today, what is the pain that you're going through? I don't know. And you don't know the pain that I might have in my life. We could talk about that, but we have our pain. We have the things that we have to endure, that we have to be steadfast over, that we have to have faithfulness in. And we are called even today to be faithful unto death, so that when the day comes, Jesus will give us that crown of life. Chapter 13 with its two insertions, first one about the first beast, the second insertion about the second beast, focused on these evil characters. And as we step into chapter 14, we'll see some righteous people in stark contrast with these two evil men.